Bitcoin and Stellar are aiming to do slightly different things. Stellar is certainly inspired by Bitcoin in a lot of ways, is complementary to it, but Bitcoin is focused more on the currency aspect of things, whereas Stellar is focused more on how to make a common language or protocol between these different financial institutions and currencies. So it would make Bitcoin interoperable and tradable with dollars or euros or pesos or whatever, and all these other currencies can be now freely and easily traded with each other.
When people talk about the relationship between XRP and XLM, most of the conversation comes back to one person, Judd McCaleb. If you've been around crypto for a while, you know the name. McCaleb isn't just some random developer. He's a figure who's been at the center of multiple critical shifts in crypto's history. From creating MTGOX, the infamous Bitcoin exchange, to co-founding Ripple, and then eventually breaking away to create Stellar, his fingerprints are all over the digital asset landscape. And it's that transition from Ripple to Stellar that explains so much about why these two coins are constantly compared, rumored to be linked, and sometimes even treated like twin brothers heading in different directions. Let's rewind. Ripple, back in the early 2010s, wasn't always called Ripple. It started as OpenCoin, a project with an ambitious vision to rewire global payments. Unlike Bitcoin, which positioned itself as a direct challenge to the banking system, Ripple wanted to work with banks. The pitch was simple. Here's a digital asset, XRP, that can be used as a bridge currency for cross-border payments. A settlement token that moves value in seconds instead of days. If you've ever tried sending money internationally through traditional banks, you know the pain. Ripple was pitching itself as the solution. McCaleb was there at the very beginning. He was one of the co-founders, and in those days, Ripple was very much his baby. But as the company grew, disagreements started to surface. Ripple's direction became increasingly corporate-focused. The goal was to land partnerships with massive financial institutions to integrate directly with the plumbing of global banking. McCaleb, however, had a different vision. He believed the technology could be more open, more decentralized, and accessible not just to the banks of the world, but to everyday people and grassroots communities. That ideological clash set the stage for one of crypto's most important splits. In 2014, McCaleb left Ripple. And not quietly either. There were lawsuits, public disputes, and messy negotiations around the vast amount of XRP he held as a co-founder. But his departure wasn't just about walking away. He left to build something new, something that reflected his vision of how blockchain technology should be used. That something became Stellar and its native token, XLM. And here's where the DNA overlap comes into play. If you looked under the hood, Ripple and Stellar share technical similarities. Both are built around the concept of a consensus protocol that doesn't rely on proof-of-work mining like Bitcoin. They prioritize speed and efficiency. Both were designed to move money fast across borders with extremely low fees. If Ripple wanted to be the enterprise solution, Stellar positioned itself as the open network for the world. Think of Ripple and Stellar like siblings. Ripple took the corporate path, suiting up for boardroom meetings with banks and regulators. Stellar took the grassroots path, trying to empower NGOs, small businesses, and financial institutions in developing countries. But even though they chose different roads, the DNA, the core code, the original inspiration remains closely related. This is why rumors about the two projects never die. People see the overlap. They see McCaleb's hand in both. They see that both XRP and XLM are laser-focused on payments, cross-border value transfer, and the dream of replacing or at least upgrading SWIFT, the decades-old system that underpins international money transfers. But here's what makes it even more fascinating. The market tends to lump them together. Whenever Ripple makes headlines, whether it's about a new banking partner, a court case with the SEC, or speculation around an XRP ETF, you'll often see Stellar moving in sympathy. It's as if traders and investors instinctively view them as connected. If Ripple is the leader in institutional adoption, Stellar becomes the younger sibling that might benefit from the same trends. This connection is even more intriguing when you consider the personalities involved. Ripple, as a company, has often been criticized for being too centralized, too corporate, too tied to the fate of its leadership. Stellar, while also criticized at times for its foundation's influence, still presents itself as the more open and decentralized alternative. It's like watching two different philosophies play out in real time. one leaning heavily into partnerships with banks, the other leaning into NGOs, fintechs, and grassroots solutions. Yet, no matter how much Ripple and Stellar try to differentiate themselves, the world keeps bringing them back together. Some analysts argue that this is because of McCaleb's story. People love a narrative, and the idea of a co-founder splitting off to create a rival project is too good to ignore. Others say it's because, on a fundamental level, they're trying to solve the same problem: the inefficiency of global money movement. And let's be honest, in crypto, narratives drive a lot of the market. The idea that Ripple and Stellar are two sides of the same coin is a powerful story. It gives traders and long-term investors alike a framework. If Ripple wins, maybe Stellar rides the wave. If Ripple stumbles, maybe Stellar is the underdog waiting to shine. But here's the twist. What if it's not a rivalry at all? What if Ripple and Stellar, while publicly separate, actually complement each other in the bigger picture? Ripple could dominate wholesale payments, the massive flows between banks and corporations. Stellar could dominate retail payments, remittances, and grassroots financial inclusion. In other words, rather than competing for the same pie, they might actually be splitting responsibilities in a way that makes both stronger. Of course, this is speculation, but it's speculation with teeth, because both networks continue to land real-world use cases. Ripple is working with central banks on CBDCs. Stellar has become a backbone for USDC integration, and its partnership with MoneyGram is already a real-world proof of concept for crypto-powered remittances. So when people say XRP and XLM are connected, it's not just about history. It's about shared DNA, overlapping missions, and the very real possibility that these two projects, born out of the same origin story, could end up defining the future of global payments together. And that's why, even though Ripple and Stellar are technically separate entities with their own ecosystems, their destinies feel intertwined. The market senses it, the rumors fuel it, and the narratives keep it alive. If you zoom out, you start to see it more clearly. Bitcoin might remain the digital gold, Ethereum might continue to be the world computer. But when it comes to cross-border payments, the actual flow of money around the globe, it's XRP and XLM that people can't stop linking. That connection, born from Jed McCaleb's split and cemented by years of parallel development, is one of crypto's most fascinating storylines. And it's only the beginning of the conversation. Every time XRP makes a move in the market, traders can't help but glance at Stellar. It's almost reflex at this point. The charts often show it. Whenever Ripple has a big announcement, a regulatory win, or even a setback, XLM tends to react in sympathy. Sometimes the reaction is muted, sometimes exaggerated, but the link is undeniable. Part of this is history. Investors remember that XRP and XLM share the same origin story, so they treat them like cousins. If one suddenly gets attention, the other gets dragged into the spotlight too. It doesn't matter that Ripple is courting central banks while Stellar is working with remittance providers. The market sees payment tokens and bundles them together. Another part is pure psychology. In crypto, traders are always hunting for the next one. If XRP starts pumping, many retail traders think, okay, Stellar is basically the cheaper version, so maybe it'll follow. That mindset alone fuels speculative waves. Even without news, XLM often mirrors XRP's momentum simply because investors assume a connection. But narratives go deeper than price charts. XRP is often cast as the banker's coin, tied to institutions, regulators, and large-scale finance. Stellar, on the other hand, is framed as the people's coin, designed to help with remittances, microtransactions, and financial inclusion. These opposing narratives actually make them more intriguing as a pair. They're like two characters in the same story, one playing the establishment role, the other the grassroots disruptor. This duality feeds into rumors of coordination. Some traders speculate that the two ecosystems are strategically aligned behind the scenes, splitting markets rather than directly competing. Ripple handles wholesale payments, Stellar handles retail. Whether or not that's true, the perception strengthens their bond in the public eye. What's even more fascinating is how news from outside either project can still tie them together. For example, when central banks talk about cross-border CBDC interoperability, both XRP and XLM get name-dropped as potential solutions. Similarly, whenever the conversation shifts toward remittances, stablecoins, or SWIFT replacement, Analysts bring both tokens into the discussion. This creates a kind of self-reinforcing loop. Rumors drive correlation, correlation drives more rumors, and the cycle keeps repeating. Traders who might not even know the technical details still buy into the connection because the market has baked it in. So, while XRP and XLM are separate projects with different leadership, missions, and partners, their price action and narratives remain tightly woven. In a space driven as much by perception as fundamentals, that connection may be just as valuable as any code they share. In crypto, perception often moves faster than facts. That's especially true when it comes to XRP and XLM. The market thrives on whispers, leaks, and half-confirmed news, and these two tokens are always at the center of it. Every time a rumor surfaces about Ripple signing a new bank, speculation kicks in about Stellar doing something similar, or vice versa. One of the longest-running narratives is that the two projects are secretly working in tandem. Ripple targets central banks, financial institutions, and wholesale settlement systems. Stellar positions itself as the champion of remittances, small businesses, and peer-to-peer payments. To some traders, this division of labor looks too neat to be coincidence. They argue it's part of a coordinated strategy, a quiet partnership designed to dominate global payments from both ends of the spectrum. Then there are the partnership rumors that flare up and add fuel to the fire. Ripple's high-profile dealings with institutions like Santander or its legal battles with the SEC often spark questions about whether Stellar might benefit indirectly. Meanwhile, whenever Stellar's work with MoneyGram or Circle makes headlines, XRP holders speculate that Ripple has something similar brewing in the shadows. The stories feed off each other, keeping both tokens relevant in market chatter. CBDCs add another layer of intrigue. Both Ripple and Stellar are regularly mentioned in conversations about central bank digital currencies. Rumors circulate about Stellar being tapped for retail CBDC testing, while Ripple is rumored to handle wholesale settlement systems. Even if no official announcements are made, traders and analysts jump on the speculation, spinning narratives about how both tokens could ultimately form the backbone of a global digital currency infrastructure. Social media magnifies all of this. A single tweet hinting at Ripple plus Stellar collaboration can send Telegram groups and Discord servers into a frenzy. Influencers pour gasoline on the fire with speculative threads, and before long, the rumor feels like reality. In crypto, narratives don't need to be true to move markets. They just need to be loud enough to capture attention. All of this creates a constant stream of what-ifs that keep XRP and XLM tied together in the public imagination. What if they're not rivals but complementary forces? What if regulatory clarity for Ripple automatically boosts Stellar? What if a coordinated CBDC rollout includes both? None of these questions have definitive answers, but the speculation alone sustains interest and trading activity. At the end of the day, rumors and speculation serve as fuel for the market. They might not always pan out, but they ensure that XRP and XLM remain front and center in conversations about the future of digital finance. And in a space where attention equals liquidity, that's a powerful advantage. Looking forward, both XRP and XLM sit at an interesting crossroads. They're no longer the new kids on the block. These are veteran projects with years of development, partnerships, and regulatory battles under their belts. But the big question investors keep asking is, what comes next and how much upside is left? For XRP, the conversation often circles back to regulation. With Ripple's ongoing legal saga with the SEC, investor sentiment tends to swing with every court update. A favorable outcome could unlock massive institutional demand, as banks and payment providers gain the confidence to fully embrace XRP without fear of compliance pushback. Many XRP holders believe this clarity could act as a launchpad, sending the token to new heights. On the flip side, lingering legal uncertainty keeps some institutional money on the sidelines, creating a sense of hurry up and wait in the community. Stellar, meanwhile, rides a different kind of narrative. Its focus on remittances and financial inclusion resonates strongly with retail investors and humanitarian organizations. Partnerships with MoneyGram, Circle, and even NGOs like the UNHCR have shown that XLM has real-world traction beyond speculation. For investors, this paints a picture of a blockchain that might not move as dramatically in price as some meme coins, but one that steadily builds credibility as infrastructure for the next era of payments. This kind of utility-driven growth creates a different type of confidence, a belief in slow and sustainable adoption. When comparing both tokens, investor sentiment often boils down to risk profiles. XRP is viewed as the more aggressive play, high stakes tied to regulatory clarity, but with the potential for outsized returns if it becomes the standard for banks and CBDCs. XLM is seen as the steadier bet, less flashy, but with consistent progress in remittances, cross-border aid, and stablecoin integrations. Together, they represent two sides of the same coin, one chasing top-down adoption through institutions, the other focusing on bottom-up adoption through everyday users. Market psychology also plays a role here. XRP has one of the most passionate communities in crypto, the XRP Army, who see themselves as underdogs fighting for recognition against regulators and doubters. This loyalty means XRP consistently attracts attention, liquidity, and speculative bets. Stellar doesn't have the same kind of cult-like following, but it does enjoy strong respect from developers, NGOs, and impact-driven investors. In other words, XRP thrives on hype, while XLM thrives on trust. Both approaches matter in crypto. Investor sentiment is shaped not just by fundamentals, but by stories, identities, and movements. As long as XRP continues to fight its regulatory battles and Stellar keeps signing humanitarian or fintech partnerships, the two tokens will remain central to conversations about the future of blockchain-powered payments. The outlook may differ, but in both cases, optimism is alive and well. When you zoom out, the story of XRP and Stellar isn't just about two cryptocurrencies competing for the same turf. It's about two different visions for how money moves in a world that's moving faster than ever. XRP wants to be the bridge for institutions, central banks, and the heavyweight players of global finance. Stellar wants to be the rails for everyday people, those sending $50 home to their families or NGOs delivering aid across borders. Together, they cover both sides of the adoption spectrum. What makes this moment so exciting is that both are finally stepping into the spotlight in 2025. With regulation inching toward clarity, new partnerships forming, and cross-border payments more relevant than ever, the stage feels set for XRP and XLM to define this next chapter of blockchain utility. Don't just watch from the sidelines. Stay informed, question the headlines, and dive deeper into what these projects are building. And if you want to keep riding this wave of insights, where we break down the noise and dig into the signals, make sure you hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share this with a fellow crypto nerd.